All right, Izzy, if you don't mind jumping on video and audio, that would be great. To the new folks just joining, thanks for being here. We're going to get started, even though I'm sure a number of people will continue to trickle in. So, Izzy, I hope you don't mind if we just jump in.
Yeah, of course.
So I think the first question that I think everybody's probably curious about is like, are those llamas on your wall? And how did you arrive at llamas on your wall? I think would be great.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of llama, alpaca, and I have the giraffe. I actually have to blame. That's all my wife. She brings up all the crazy art for me. Those I keep trying to find where I can get those though, because every time I'm on a call, like our CEO was asking where he can get one. You know, they're definitely the highlight of any video call these days.
Yeah. So long-necked animals, it sounds like, is a staple in your house.
Yeah,
Um,
glasses.
um, hey everybody, my name is Andrew Farah. I'm co-founder and CEO of Density. Um, if you're unfamiliar with what we do, we build systems that measure how buildings get used, and we work with a lot of people in workplace and real estate. And we were lucky enough to get to talk to Izzy Sanchez, who leads things and real estate over at Twitch. Izzy, what's your role at Twitch? What do you do day to day? What does a person who's focused on real estate and workplace do every day? And then we can jump into some questions.
Yeah, so I'm responsible for security, EH&S, the workplace experience, travel, and kind of the day in, day out of my life is really just like making sure that the employee experience really matches to the Twitch culture and just enabling people that are in an office to be successful. So that's what we're really trying to do.
And I'm curious, like how many you've like been through pandemics before? This is your like second pandemic, or is this is kind of the first time around running real estate during one?
This is definitely, well, the first pandemic really for that I've been through. We've had some other like bigger issues in the past. Back 9/11, that was crazy when we had a lot of people stranded when everything shut down. So, but yeah, this is our first big pandemic.
Has I think one of the questions that we've sort of heard a lot of perspectives on is just is the pandemic sort of having a material impact on like change management or like changing things culturally around real estate, or are you starting to see that like for the most part Twitch is going to remain mostly the same and it's really just kind of about weathering this kind of uncertain period of reopening?
I think it's both. We're definitely weathering the storm and then just kind of evaluating case by case leases as they come up, if it makes sense, that be able to realign those locations to our strategy. But long term, we think like the footprint stays the same. It's just like how we're using spaces. People working from home has been more or less successful, and we just are going to use this opportunity for like how we drive people into the office and why people would go into an office. So,
Yeah. And for those attending, if you have questions, best to just toss them in the Q&A. And what I'll do is I'll incorporate them into the discussion live as opposed to a separate dedicated Q&A session. It's just a bit more fun and a little bit more dynamic. And if the bird, Megan, starts to get annoying, just let me know and I'll manage my mute button. We've got a couple avian friends around here. What is like the office for? And I'm curious if that has changed like pre and post pandemic. Like is the office about retention? Is the office about like collaboration and productivity? Is the office about a sense of building culture? Like, is there any difference, or is it just this is just sort of a strange hiccup in our standard real estate strategy?
No, for us, the office was all three of those. So it was really just a place for collaboration, a place where people can get together. We still find there's a lot of value in like those water cooler conversations. So workplace is important for that. We do a lot of events in our spaces, and it's really about like continuing driving the culture and community. So we still feel like that's a big value. We've done a lot of like post-assessment with employees about like, how's this working? Are you thinking about going back into the office, and what do you miss? And it's really comes back to like, oh, I miss, work, seeing my coworkers, or I miss like these experiences that we would curate. So we feel like that's still going to be a big driver. I mean, we have an amazing food program, which of course is, who knows when that'll come back, but that was like a big driver too for people going into the office. So a lot of those, once those triggers come back, we see a big workforce wanting to use them. So
maybe level set for folks here. What percentage of your employees are in the office right now?
So right now, the percentage of our employees is about 1%. So it's mostly, the workplace team doing projects, but we do have a cycling group of people going through. So like today, there's someone in there.
Like Peloton cycling? What do you mean by
cycling?
Yeah,
there'll be like weird instances, like someone selling their house and like, can I use the office while this is happening? It's like, sure. Or there's a resource I need, and they want to go into the office for a day. So we have like these random people coming through every day into the office, but it's a small subset of it though.
Gotcha. Have you moved from assigned seating or assigned space to unassigned? Was that a change that happened, or were you already making that change?
We were piloting the change, and we've been talking about it. We've done a lot of studies on like wanting to do that, and we pivoted early on and did something else, but long term we knew that was something we wanted to bring back. And we were just about to pilot it in February, March, and of course the pandemic hit. But this did push this through, because right now with pandemic everywhere is hot desking. So it's a reservable desk. And part of that too is because of the distancing requirements. So this is a global thing. So anyone going into an office just reserves a desk for the day. So people are, they're getting used to it now.
Do you know what the utilization is relative to demand? So like there's like the room gets booked, the space gets booked, but I'm curious, do you know like how often it gets abandoned, ghosted, or used?
That's a good question. So if you're looking at one set, we have two data trackers. So we have the actual tool, and then a lot of the locations we have badge access. So I've seen it go, if you're looking on like the reservation system, it looks like an 80% to 60 to 80% utilization. But when you're looking at the hard data, it's probably closer to 40 to 60. So there definitely are cases of people reserving and not using the space.
Yeah. So there's sort of a question about leadership and sort of the mindset associated with real estate. And so one of the questions, and I'll kind of like shape it a little bit. You had said there are certain percentages of use below which it'll materially change your real estate strategy, above which it'll materially change your real estate strategy. What are those floor and ceiling? And like, what would happen if you're beneath or above? Like, what is leadership essentially going to do differently with its real estate strategy?
Yeah. So right now it's a little bit, our strategy now is like, if the office is underutilized, which is like 5%, we'll potentially just pause those offices, which we've done in a few locations. But that's just short-term strategy, because we understand like, well, people are just working from home, and what we plan on doing is reassessing what the need is afterwards. We're still office first. So for us to really be like, this space isn't working and let's reevaluate if we really need it, would be like under 40% on a regular basis, I think would reflect on like, all right, maybe we need to downsize to something else or change our strategy. For going over, honestly, our offices have always been utilized around 65%, and that's been pretty good for us. I honestly don't even ever, I'd be surprised if we ever were above that. I mean, just the way people worked in the past and how we're working now, we're probably lucky to get, 55%.
There's some practical questions, which are always helpful around like software programs that you use for reserving desks. What do you use? Is it in-house? Is it a popular provider? How do you think about reserving space, neighborhoods, desks,
Yeah,
conference
so
rooms?
we had been using Office Space for a while, and they've been really great about like changing a lot of the requirements, and they've started building in questionnaires of like health questions that you have to go through before you can even reserve a desk. And they have, you know, you can set up neighborhoods and rules. So so far it's been really good. Of course, you know, we're always like reevaluating what's out there and is it meeting our needs? But right now
Yeah.
it's been a good tool.
Yeah. Um, what about international? What's the size of your portfolio? How many square feet do you have, and like how many different countries or regions do you operate in?
So we're 30 offices globally. A big portion of that portfolio are like WeWork. So we're looking at, you know, like hubs of 10 people to
Hmm.
35, and then our 45, including Salt Lake. We're all over the US, Mexico, APAC. You know, Singapore is our APAC hub, all the way through Sydney, Tokyo, and then in EMEA, London's our EMEA hub, and then we're in Germany, and we're growing everywhere else. So portfolio wise, we're probably like 300,000 square feet.
Gotcha. And are there differences in either behaviors from the end occupants or differences in real estate strategy internationally or like region by region based on COVID precautions or vaccine distribution? And we're going to get into safety in just a sec. So we'd love to just sort of level set us for a little bit. Like, are you seeing different behavior, or is it that 1% utilization is pretty much universal?
No, the 1% is more US. Internet, APAC's probably the lead in percentage usage, and they're closer to like 15% occupancy. EMEA itself, you know, they were leading for a little while, but then they've had some peaks and they've slowed down. We see like Paris, Germany a little bit, but our main hub in London is also 1%. So
I'm curious, like, do you know? I mean, you must have employees saying, "Please open the office." I mean, have you ever had an employee say, "Can we please open the office?" That's closed, or are all offices essentially maintained as status is open if you want to use it?
we left everything open, status is there. And the reason for that is we understood early on, like there were situations where people were working from home and it just was not a good experience, and they needed to be able to go into a location just to get away for their wellness. So we've always been thoughtful of making sure they had a place that they can go into. So
Hmm. um, and so let's talk about safety. There's a bunch of other questions I'm going to get to. I promise if you ask a question, we can definitely get it. So feel free to toss it in there. There's no, I don't think there's any taboo questions, but we'll see. So we had this distinction about like safety. There's the perception of safety. There's actual safety, right? Like our desks cleaned regularly. And then there's the perception of safety, which is, do I feel like the desk was cleaned? And that's sort of like an end occupant experience as opposed to, you know, the admin sort of management of the space. Can you kind of like briefly give me a sense or us a sense of how you think about those two things? Like, what are you doing on the actual, we're going to reopen safely? Like, do you have a bet on when you're going to reopen? Do you have a bet on when most people come back? And like, what are you doing precautionary wise? And then like, how are you managing the message for folks?
there is a bet, and the bet is it either August or is it in 22 when we'll see people returning? And a lot of that is around like when vaccines are going to come out, and then you have the whole family side of it of like, there's no kid vaccine. I'm going to wait until 22. And then there's also like a population of like, let's just see what happens with the vaccine before I take it. So I'm assuming we'll start seeing some subset of population in August. What we're doing, we've already started on a lot of like the security and messaging. So messaging definitely is important, and making sure people are aware of what's happening and not just like letting them assume what's going on. So we've done it in a lot of different ways. So one was like, now we have like some of the smaller offices where I don't have control. We've ensured there was tons of PPE. We've
Mm-hmm.
grown signage. We've done a lot of education around, hey, when you go into an office, this is what the WeWork's doing, but also this is additional things that we're providing. So you can also wipe down your own desk, we're doing their own temperature screening in those locations. They're going through a questionnaire. They're all educated to that specific office. So like there's comms to every office that's tailored to that location. And that way we can also keep up with guideline changes if we need to. For the bigger offices, we're doing temperature screening that you go through. Again, the amount of signage that we have plastered around is everywhere. So we have that. We're doing a lot of email. We're doing, there's Slack discussions that come up, like big changes that happen. We'll jump into like that office channel Slack and be like, hey, FYI, these are things that are going on in this office, just so you're aware. We're letting people know that we're doing, we have tracing efforts that are going on.
But it sounds like even despite the communication, that there's still utilization is really low. So really, like it sounds like the test of some of this communication is going to come to bear as the bet starts to formalize, whether it's August or the end of the year. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, correct. It's definitely, well, you got to test it out a little bit in APAC and
mm-hmm.
for a while. So we have gone through it somewhat, but yeah, the big test will be San Francisco when we have like 1,000 employees. So when people are starting coming back, how that actually works out.
There's a really good question about benchmarking. So I'm curious, like, who's your analog? Like, who do you compare yourself to? Another tech company, other gaming companies? Are you like Valve? Like, what do you, when you think of like how you compare your strategy or your plan with other folks, do you have any benchmarking data that you compare yourself to? Or is it mostly, or is it mostly just kind of Twitch specific?
It's a lot of Twitch specific just because of our culture, but we do, we go out and we look at what other companies are doing. We partner more with like Gensler and JLL and because they have a broad focus and they're looking across the horizon, and we kind of look at what they're doing. It just as a pulse of what our vision is, just to see if it's matching up. But it's hard to like, who would I even compare to with just a unique culture. So we kind of like, decide ourselves on this one.
How do you decide when to buy new space, get new space? What's the methodology for that?
So it's just the way how we operate, but is typically we wait till we're a certain size of the population that will move out of a WeWork and move into our own space. Mm-hmm. Once you hit that size, and it triggers like, all right, let's go find real estate for them.
Yep. What about sort of like new expectations, new requirements as a result of safety, or especially internationally? There's a question about how are you managing new OSHA or regional jurisdictional requirements? Do you have new, and I want to caveat this with like, most of your folks are not in office, so there's like a difference between plan and practice. But right. I imagine there are some things that you probably have to prepare for if there are new ordinances or local regulations. Have you run into any of those? And if so, like, what are they?
I mean, like San Francisco itself was shifting around all the time. So, they'd come back with the city had different ordinances and things that you'd have to post and their requirements. So just working close in those jurisdictions. I do get to cheat a little bit here because Twitch is owned by Amazon. So I do have a partner that I will flag sometimes. So I'm not necessarily carrying the big burden. They'll have like, I'll do a little sync on like what's going on and around the world sometimes, and I can just use those resources. So it's been a little bit helpful there.
Yep. Okay, so you've got, how many employees do you have total?
We are, I just did the count today, 1,800. Okay,
you've got 1,800 employees. 99% of them are working from home with their llamas and giraffes. What is like, I imagine you're probably going to keep some of what happened, keep some of this sort of like hybrid work. And then some of it just will fade away as people start to come back to the office. But have you had new like mobility management stuff, new mobile device management stuff that you have to do? Or is this mostly like things that you've already supported, hybrid and distributed work? It's just kind of accelerated and maybe put it in a starker contrast.
Yeah, it definitely accelerated it. We've always supported mobility to an extent, and it was more around like, or more if it was an ergonomic need, not necessarily like, let's build them an office. So I think that has concreted, like, all right, long term, we will continue to support the remote employee, being able to like make sure they have a desk and resources so they're productive. We're always looking at technology and how we can use that connection. I think the thing that we've really picked up here is how important virtual is. So we've always had an issue in the past of like, you have like these great experiences happening in certain offices, and then like you have visiting offices coming in, and they're like, oh, why can't we have that experience? We're missing like these things. And we see virtual as a way to have that connection long term. So like we're really investing more and more into that, and we're having more discussions of like, how do we enable that virtual experience so it's movable. So like you have like these big team rooms, and typically you might have just like one camera around a desk, but there might be like soft seating or other areas where people are moving around, and being able to like have ability for those that are virtually participating can have those experiences throughout that whole space,
right?
As well as like communal areas too. So, we
Can
really
you define, can you just for clarification, can you define virtual? When you say virtual, do you mean just distributed sort of software-based collaboration video, or are you wandering into the realm of virtual reality? Like, are you wandering into the realm of maybe more experimental space management?
we have not run into the virtual reality yet, although that is an interesting concept. No, it's just more of a portal that
I see.
you're jumping into. Yeah.
I see. What's your least favorite thing about distributed work? And what's your favorite thing?
I guess it's the human contact probably is the thing. And then the best part is, just family time a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Couple other questions that were really good. Are there things that you are physically changing about the space? Removing desks, lounge spaces, getting rid of the M&M bowl. Like, I'm just sort of curious, like what type of material changes physically are you making or have made or planning to make, if any, going into, aside from signage?
Yeah, so there's two. So there's during pandemic, of course, all the M&M bowls, anything that you're really touching, food in general has been fully eliminated. We just want to not have that as an exposure. And we're also not trying to like drive people into an office because they've missed like snacks or something. So we're like, let's just put that on pause. We haven't removed furniture. What we've done is we've just like disabled it and like with signage, like this is not a space anymore. And the same throughout like communal spaces that are like, we've just designated where people could sit. So that's like the short term. Long term, we're starting to reevaluate like the space itself. We're starting to de-densify certain areas and repurpose them for what we see, trying to be more agile. So we understand like when people come in, they're coming in for a purpose, and be able to like address those needs. So we're trying to think through what that looks like.
So we work with some organizations that are limiting or setting a maximum safe capacity as they return to office, and then essentially using measurement systems to make sure that they're not exceeding that capacity as they reopen buildings.
Yeah.
Will you be setting or limiting kind of the number of folks that can simultaneously be in a space? Or do you think that you're just going to kind of let folks self-police, self-regulate?
No, we're gonna monitor it, just because I think people just aren't always aware, and then it turns into like a 70% occupancy on the floor. So we will be controlling that, and we're trying to. I think in the beginning we're looking more at like a 35% occupancy.
Yep.
We just don't want to rush into it,
right.
So we want to make sure everything's working the way we envision it, and then at a max occupancy is probably like 45%. We're even looking at like, well, measuring it per floor, because you have the full building and you kind of can control each floor by desk reservation doesn't mean like people don't come down and you start seeing a higher population. So like trying to think through floor by floor, like, oh, this is turning into like a red zone. And like,
yeah. It's an interesting point. You're essentially talking about load balancing the space, like human load balancing, and doing so. This sort of leads to another question about policing. It's like, how much do you empower occupants to make safe decisions, and then how much do you manage sort of from an administrative standpoint how people, what they can access, like you were saying about this is no longer a space that you can use, or this has been repurposed for something else. So I guess I'm sort of curious, like, I've heard a lot about like, okay, like we're going to measure social distance between phones, some ambient magical technology that's like, you two are 5.5 feet apart from one another. Do you think that the answer is giving occupants data that can help them make safer decisions? Or do you think that you're going to need to kind of intervene in real time as people are either too close or the capacity's gone above a certain number?
In a perfect world, I would hope it is self-policed, but I think just from the experience from going into the office and even watching some of the smaller teams in the beginning, you're just not aware of it. Like, you've been home this whole time and you miss like talking to people. So I think there is going to be not necessarily policing, but like a little bit of reminders of like, hey, by the way, this is something
right.
that, you're putting yourself in a situation that probably isn't great. So
there was another, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
One of the things that you brought up that I thought was really interesting was your policy on vaccination, or how you're thinking about vaccination. And again, any of these questions, if they wander into territory that you're just like, hey, I can't speak on it, just like say that and I'll move on. But I'm sort of curious, you'd made this interesting comment about how you're thinking about whether or not you'll mandate it or whether or not you won't mandate it, and like what you're sort of waiting for from a vaccination standpoint. Can you kind of give us a sense on how you're thinking about policy for that?
Yeah, so current thought was we're not requiring it, so we're not forcing employees to go get vaccinated. What we're doing is we'll wait until we feel like there's a reasonable assumption that a certain, call it 70% of the population has had the opportunity to get vaccinated. And then at that point, what would happen is then we would just lessen some of the requirements. So potentially it's, we've gone from 50% to now we can go to 65% occupancy in the space. Maybe things like food program gets turned back on, and then feel even more comfortable. And we'll measure, right? Once we've turned that on, we'll just continue measuring. Like, all right, there are cases coming up. Is this working? And if we still see like a 0 case run, then we'll continue with that strategy until we feel like, all right, 100% of the population, we've had herd populations gone through.
So you've got this gradual reentry. You've got a plan to sort of like, look, it's not about saying you must be vaccinated or like you're not allowed in. It's rather just, hey, if you've had the public has had sufficient access to vaccination, then we'll start to relax some of and ideally COVID cases will be going down. So it'll be easy to sort of look at some of the hard data. Offices are all open now, and will remain that way. You'll just sort of meter the maximum capacity. And then as you sort of go over month by month, you might increase that capacity depending on performance. I guess, so real estate all of a sudden in workplace became kind of the white hot center of corporate strategy. When COVID hit, it was sort of like, what do we do with all these people? And so I'm just curious, like, who is it that you either report to or that you work with who's ultimately responsible for or accountable for the quality of the decisions and outcomes that we're talking about here? Is it CEO? Is it COO? Is it finance? Is it HR? Like, where does this go and what does it roll up to?
Yeah, luckily I reported both into finance and to the HR role. So I report into the CHRO role, which is great because we look at it holistically about the employees. So, right, the benefits, the health, well-being, as well as like the workplace experience and home, and now shifted to the home experience, which all reports up to the COO. So, a lot of this goes up to that top tier level, and there's a lot of these discussions of what we're doing. And so, yeah, it's a lot of HR specific, but then it goes up to like the top 3.
So there's a question about sort of services and perks for remote and in office. You'd mentioned meals. If people aren't traveling, you've got new budget to spend on other things. You know, if you're not making meals, you've got new budget that you can spend on other things. How are you thinking about supporting remote work functionally? You know, you'd mentioned ergonomics initially, but curious if there are other programs that you're also running.
Yes, we run a few. There's the home office setup now, and it's automated where you can just like go click and get your desk and chair. We've improved kind of like the IT support package because we realized early on like it wasn't just a monitor and keyboard. It was a little like random things that they needed and just streamlining the process. So making it so people can just get what they needed at home. We do a thing called Surprise and Delight, which has been really successful, which is like these little packages show up. We kept the core kitchen staff, and they're doing like cooking demos. And then, they've done treats and other things that we've sent out to employees. And those that have been, we've done a lot of hiring post-pandemic, but there's been like a huge like, oh, I remember these cookies. I missed the kitchen. And so just doing those types of things, we're helping with the internet, reimbursement, things like that. So yeah, and then we've kicked up our virtual event program as well, which has been big. So,
is it fair to say that when you all go back the office, and then I want to talk about a little bit about the future, and more like prognostications and sort of like expectations and ambition. By the way, if you have, I know that we're coming up or have hit the 30-minute mark. We're probably going to go for another 15 minutes or so. If you have questions, if you have to go, obviously, feel free to leave. But I'd say that if you do have questions, toss them in soon, and I'll make sure that we get to them. But before we do, I guess I was just sort of curious, like, you were assigned before the pandemic, and maybe we're moving towards unassigned, I think was the comment you'd made to me.
Correct.
After all of this, do you think that if you were to like put a percentage on it, what percentage of your real estate becomes unassigned space that is bookable or usable in an ad hoc manner?
I mean, a large portion of it becomes that. I think with the sign seating and everything probably goes to like 70% of our real estate is bookable now.
Wow. Okay. So like the vast majority is unassigned. I guess then the next question is, will it stay that way? Do you think that you will officially be unassigned, sort of 70% unassigned into perpetuity?
I think long-term what is going to be, and we've always stressed this, right? We feel like this is a blanket strategy, right? But we understand it's not a one size fits all too. We'll have like certain ratios might apply to certain groups because they're just on the road more, or more of a remote. But we also have groups still that are coming in every day. We have they're dealing with sensitive information or just want to come in. So it'll be a sliding scale where we see like a certain percentage of real estate will still be assigned, but a lot of people will be we expect will be on board with hot shared desking.
What teams require assigned seats?
I don't know if they require, but we have it's called Trust and Safety, and they're looking at a lot of crazy content. So
gotcha.
They need to be in a certain area away from it. We have, finance. Sometimes you'll have groups in there that in legal that are going in every day. You have even on HR, we had a small percentage of people that just lived in the Bay Area. I mean, if you look at our population, I think we're about 1,000 in San Francisco, and half of that's all North Bay, and 350 are in San Francisco itself. So, we still see, as soon as you turn on like a food program, you're going to start seeing at least those that are local, like, I'm just going to walk into the office and get lunch today.
Sure.
Work in the morning, get lunch, and go home.
Right. Well, that's an interesting thing, sort of thinking about the office more as like a space that you visit as opposed to a space that you go to for a full day.
Yeah.
To like show up, grab food in the morning, maybe work till noon, and then go back and do your afternoons.
Or grab an in-person meeting, or I need to meet with the VP. I'm just going to go jump in and just have a face-to-face time.
Fascinating. Okay, some awesome questions. Step back. We sort of look at. Before we move on to unassigned and assigned. Do you think there's downsides to unassigned, 70% unassigned? Like what are the consequences of moving to, is it change management, or like what's the downside?
There's definitely a big change management. And we started a lot of this work, like I said, last year in February. We went through the change management process with every team, at least a core set of every group in our office. We went through it, and just to understand like pros and cons. And of course, that first half hour, and then people are just like, oh, this is crazy. I've gone from having a cubicle to now it's an open desk, or from a room, and now you're saying I don't have my own desk. But then you start talking through like, well, how much are you really at your desk? We're crazy.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm like, if you look at a typical day when I'm in the office, I probably sit at my desk an hour or two. That's how intensive we are with our meetings, and I'll be in meetings all day. And a lot of people are the same way. If you walk around our office, most of the space is always empty. But if you look at the occupancy, we're like 65% of people. So where were they? They're all in meetings, or they're in other spaces.
How are you calculating occupancy? Are you talking about badge swipes?
So we've done badge swipes. We did a deep audit where we had someone actually going through for a couple of weeks and like, where is everybody at? And we mapped it out floor by floor, resources. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Gotcha. So either temporary space studies or one directional badge swipe. So visitation.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. So you snap your fingers, all buildings and real estate immediately adopt the future that's in your head. What do you imagine for that future? More of the trends that we're seeing today, less space, more distributed work. Like, what is it that in your wildest dreams, the next 3, 5, 10 years, what changes?
Yeah, I think the office is just it's a destination. So people go there for a reason, right? It's not like when I was starting, I was going in just to go sit at my desk and put in my 8 hours, right? It's you're going in because you miss working with your coworkers, or you want some in-person meetings, or there's this experience that you want to be. We're really building the community where we're having a lot of you're going in the office to be able to like share those experiences, not necessarily work related, but like common causes, and there's this great food program or these other experiences. And that's why you're going in, and not just because I just need a desk to sit at. I think the day of just needing a desk and being in the office 8 hours is gone. I think now you're thinking about why does an office exist? We still think like those it's just a focal point. And then do I fill it with desks? Probably not. Now, what are the things that you need for these teams? Like, I think you're starting to look at team specific, not just like, all right, here's the blanket and it goes across the whole building. It's like, all right, marketing, they work differently. Let's design the space for
right.
And then engineers work, they might come in, they're more heads down space. So yeah, you're looking at it and just being more agile and understanding like, all right, you want to be able to flex and move stuff around as teams grow and or shrink, or their needs change, and be able to accommodate those and really just be like a focal point for people.
And so like, if I were to call Twitch's CEO and say like, what's the metric that you measure your real estate on as success or failure? What's the KPI, or what's the key metric? What would they point to? Is it voluntary employee retention or satisfaction? Is it, is it just pure cost center? You're just thinking about like,
no, I think cost is always on the back burner for them. It's more about like the retention are we driving a purpose? Do people feel connected? Do they feel fulfilled? Workplace does participate in that fulfillment. Also the actual work they're doing and who they're reporting up to, but all that does play an important part. So I think they're looking at that, like the overall experience, workplace in their mind still is a reason why people join Twitch, because of that community that we've built in there.
So we got about another 5 minutes for the folks still here. If you have any questions, feel free to toss them in, and I'll make sure that I bring them up. That's actually a good question. Justin asked, how do you, and maybe this is a fuzzy line, but how do you tie retention back to the workplace? Are these like temp checks on surveys? Is this like a net promoter score? Like how are you saying, workplace drove 75% voluntary retention of our employees. How do you think about drawing lines between actual performance?
Yeah, so we do a lot of surveys, and there's your exit survey, and we do touch on a lot of things that would point back into workplace. Um, and that's how we're driving it. You know, there might be, you'll find out more of, you'll see like workplace plays a big part in like our WeWorks compared to our San Francisco. That's always, it's a huge pain point because they're like, there's only so much experience you can control in that environment, right?
Yeah.
So I was like pointing back to San Francisco, and every time I go and I'm on like my road show and I'm meeting in these different teams, and they're just like, when are we going to get our own office? And you kind of walk them through and so they understand what it is. But yeah, I'm telling you, our office is just a very unique experience. I've done this a long time, and we really have put a really great program, and we understand like what's important to employees, and you know, it's how we drive the culture and your sense of belonging through that workplace. So yeah.
If you were to eliminate the office from Twitch, just it goes away entirely, how many employees do you think you would keep on a percentage basis?
I think we'd lose it. I don't know. I couldn't put a percentage on it, but I know it would definitely hurt a good group of them. I mean, every time we do a survey, I mean, it's the thing they keep being, they're like, you know, I might not go in the office as much as I did, but I definitely want to go back. And these are all the things I miss. And everything's around, you know, either the contact or the experience of the office. So I think without that, it would be difficult. I mean, we're trying to do it a lot with the virtual experience, but you do miss out on some of that with in person.
Yeah. Who do you admire in workplace design, real estate, furniture? Do you have any folks that you really think just like, man, they really knocked it out of the park? Contemporaries?
Like I'm always impressed with like Airbnb's designs, and you know, we work with Gensler a lot lately, and they've done some incredible things. Of course, I just went blank on. There's like a handful of others. Like when I go into their facilities, I'm like, wow, they curate and they really have a good like what's important to employees, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, this was awesome. Izzy, do you have any other things, any other like, what question didn't I ask that I should have asked someone who leads real estate, sort of in the present moment?
I can't think of anything that you missed.
We covered it all. We got all.
We covered it all. We did it all in 45 minutes.
Oh wait, we've got maybe one or two more that showed up. Who do you disagree with? This is a good question. There's a lot of thought leadership, and I'll spell thought THOT leadership in all of this. You know, everybody became a pandemic expert overnight back in March last year about like what exactly would happen. Who do you strongly, or what do you, maybe not who, what do you strongly disagree with? Commonly held concepts or expectations?
I think on the ones I disagree with those are still like 100% every day in the office. I don't think that's ever a world that makes sense. And then I have reservations about the 100% remote. I just don't know, like in that world, how you're building the purpose besides just the work you're doing and bridging a lot of that. And I think you still miss out on a lot of conversations. Like I'm pretty far out from the office, but I do go in 3 days a week. And I feel like there's days I miss out on stuff. Like I've heard third party, you know, through other people about some stuff that had happened. I'm like, if I had been there, that would have been, you know, been awesome. Or I just missed out on these opportunities or these experiences. And I just don't think you can capture those being 100% remote.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Izzy, I really appreciate the time. For the folks who've attended and asked questions, they're great questions. I wanted to sort of like quickly call out that we are doing these interviews in this interview series really regularly over the next call it 6 to 9 months, potentially through the end of the year. I have a bunch of folks lined up. The next one is with CBRE. I know that we also have Zendesk and a couple others lined up. The next one is February 24th If you are interested in sort of attending, just go to density.io and you can find webinars. Izzy is on LinkedIn, I think. So if you'd like to connect with him, you can find him on LinkedIn. But Izzy, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was good chatting about this.
All right, everybody have an awesome day. Thank you so much. See you.